Okay, I'm Marisa Villarreal. This is Miguel Sepulveda. This is Emily Burns and David Kitson and Jennifer Sandoval, and we are Dakota Company. Like I said, my name's Marissa, and I'm going to discuss the introduction of this presentation. Enterprise is obviously a growing company that's always in need of new employees. And social media is a growing trend amongst job seekers and recruiters. So Dakota Company took on the task of discovering which social media is most effective in reaching job seekers. According to research, 94% of recruiters currently use or plan to use social media in their recruiting efforts. By focusing on the best social media channels to attract employees, Enterprise will have a higher chance of finding better quality and higher quantity of potential employees. The Company reached out to individuals that were over 18 with various education levels to participate in the surveys, with only requirements being that they have used social media in the past when searching for jobs. Surveys were distributed through SurveyMonkey, but due to technical difficulties, an additional 100 physical surveys were distributed among faculty and staff of St. Edward's. The survey consisted of 9 questions to discover which social media channels were used for job searches. The info was then analyzed using Excel, and further research was conducted online to better understand and substantiate our primary findings. An elaboration of the conducted process will be further explained. An account of the primary research will be given by Miguel, including how primary research was gathered, an explanation of creation and distribution of surveys. Survey results displayed by graphs and findings will be given by Emily. David will explain relevant secondary research that substantiates our primary findings, and Jennifer will give Dakota Company's recommendations based on research and give a conclusion of the presentation. Now I'm going to hand it over to Miguel.
As Marissa mentioned, my name is Miguel, and I will be presenting on data collection. The main methods we use to gather data were links through Facebook that link people to SurveyMonkey, and also another 100, as Marissa mentioned, surveys that we had to administer. In total, we sent out about 4,000 surveys through Facebook, and the additional 100. We were able to collect 189 valid surveys, which gave us a confidence interval of 92%. And there were initially 10 questions, but since SurveyMonkey wouldn't allow the respondents to choose the correct answer, we decided to just eliminate it, and we were able to do just fine without it. Ultimately, our questions attempted to figure out how old the respondents were, as well as which social medias they found easiest to use, which ones were the first ones that they went to, and as well as other questions. Now we'll pass it on to Emily, and she will discuss our analysis.
Thank you, Miguel. Okay, like he said, my name is Emily. We had I think SurveyMonkey only let us have 100 surveys through that before we had to pay for a subscription, and we didn't really want to do that. So then we had another 100 on paper. I was actually in charge of the analysis, so I took all of the surveys from SurveyMonkey and the paper ones and put them into an Excel spreadsheet. Then I made 2 more sheets on the spreadsheet where I divided it up by age and then by education level. And I think Miguel is going to email you that spreadsheet when we're done here, just in case you want just the raw data. After I divided it up, I totaled. I totaled them all across, and then I did a percentage of all of them, percentage of the total people. But then I realized that on certain questions such as what have you used before and which social media have given you an interview, if people could say multiple answers, the percentage of people, they weren't adding up to 100. So I also did percentage of the tally marks to make it more accessible. And then I used those numbers to create graphs. Will I hit this button? So, after the demographic questions, our first question was, what social media have you used to look for a job? And as you can see, Craigslist was number one, just basically across the board. Where Monster, LinkedIn, Facebook, Career Builder, our top 5 were, again, pretty big across the board. Oh no, what did I do? Okay. So then I broke it out by demographic, by age bracket, and by education level. As you can see here, Facebook is used less and less as you get older, whereas Career Builder is used more and more with age. And with education level, Monster, LinkedIn, and Career Builder tend to be used more with more education levels, whereas Craigslist tended to go down with education level. And while Facebook was used pretty consistently across the board, it wasn't used first in any demographic. And now I'm going to hand it over to David for our secondary research.
So now I'm going to talk about secondary research. As Marissa stated, our secondary research was undertaken in order to substantiate our primary research findings. The theme that we discussed the most in our secondary research was how most social media used by employers in the hiring process, and we did secondary research through journal articles, newspaper articles, and blogging, some blogs. And one of the most important ones was how to land an interview using social media. This was done by Medell in 2013, just actually recently in November. He's saying, Medell stated that for employees and employers are now using different tools in the hiring process, in hiring recruitment process, yet the most important tools they used were Monster and LinkedIn for hiring, and for branding were Twitter and Facebook to make connections with employees and employers as well for other companies. An example he used was how tweeting when you had a job opening, how tweeting the job opening would reach out to employees so they could apply for it. Another example was in the recruiting hiring advice by Bennington. Here he says how new companies how to use in social media to take notice for employers to take notice of them, and the most used would be LinkedIn and Monster in this sense. And because he gives example of how through the use of LinkedIn you can have a greater connection with your employees and the potential employees, and how to get them and how to attract employees by the usage of the social media. And the last one was actually how employers use the social media to hire and fire. In this case, this was an article written by Jackson in 2011. However, the most important use here was saying how for employees it's important to have an important presence in the media. It's also important for the company employers to have a presence in such social media, such as LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Monster, Career Builder, and Craigslist. He's stating also that it's important for employers to demonstrate the company's culture when you're trying to do the social media, and as well as how it's important to use such connections in such media such as LinkedIn and Monster when trying to find a potential employer, and trying to acquire them, especially when it comes to millennials. And now I'll hand it over to Jennifer Sandoval. She'll discuss our recommendations for.
Thank you, David. Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer, and I will be talking about the recommendations based on our primary data and secondary. So the top off is 3 clicks or less recommendation. You are enterprises on all of the LinkedIn, Monster, all the sites, but we need easy access to it. We want to see apply now, real quick. We don't want to go through the whole page. We don't want to look for where do I apply. We want it to be visible and at the top of the page. The next recommendation is to create a postings on Craigslist. From seeing people go to look at Craigslist for jobs, especially Austin, subject, enterprise, location Austin, enterprise pops up. It's believed $25 to $75 for a posting, The only thing is that daily it'll just get sent back, as far as a week old, 2 weeks old. So you want to post more ads to be at the beginning of the list. And then the third recommendation is to add enterprise in your titles. We looked at Career Builder, and the title of the job is Austin Training Management. It's not enterprise. Like, you type in enterprise, you don't get enterprise. You get random stuff. You have to type in enterprise car to get enterprise. And who thinks to type in enterprise car when searching for a job? So we think if you add enterprise to your title, you'll get more hits. And I believe we typed in enterprise car and it was on the top of the list, but it says Austin Management Training, and that doesn't really tell us who it's for, what it's doing. It just says Austin Management Training. And if you're not interested in being a manager right away, why are you going to click it? You're not, you're just going to go by. Which brings us to your ad posting. Now, if I were to see this, I would pass by it. That's just a lot of words to read. I don't have time to read your ad because I'm looking for a job. So what we would recommend is to put a picture or a video. You have a wonderful program, and if you just explain it in a video, you'll be more likely to have it out there. So if I press play, I'll hear about your program instead of having to read all of this. Like, you need to make your ads more attractive for millennials, because we have Instagram, Vimeo, YouTube. We want videos, we want pictures. We don't want to read because we're just fast. That's just our generation. So this we got from Career Builder. This is your current ad. And see how it says Austin Management Training? That's what you're advertising. You're not advertising a job for enterprise, you're advertising Austin Management Training. And then our second recommendation is to create an Austin local Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, or any of the social medias that are currently used. This is Enterprise Careers Instagram, and it looks really fun. Like, I want to work here. I don't want to work here at all. But here, I want to wear a big mustache. That's really cool. So Enterprise has their own social media, so Enterprise Careers has their social media. And we would suggest to add a link, I guess that's a bar, to the top of your ad. So if someone's looking, they could click it, and they won't get Enterprise, they'll get Enterprise Careers. So they'll get a deeper look into your culture. And they're like, oh, this looks cool, I'll apply for the job. Instead of, I hope you didn't write that. I hope that
No,
was
I didn't write it. You're
But
right.
if you just see the correlation, and you just said you didn't write that, so you don't have control. But if you have your own local Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, what have you, you have control, and you can add the changes that you see fit based on what we're finding here or what you read on your own. And yeah, this is really cool. They have these pictures linked to the Facebook, which is also good, that everything is linked together. So no matter if someone's on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, they'll have access to the same thing. And to conclude, social media is growing, and so is enterprise. And we want to have enterprise streamline all of their platforms. You are on the right ones. You're on LinkedIn, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're there. You just have to utilize it better. And Marissa introduced us to the problem, and Miguel, so adorable, isn't he? Miguel did the data collection. Emily analyzed it, and David explained secondary research, and I did the recommendation. And the main recommendation, just the big generalized, is to showcase Enterprise's company culture, because that's something you said that drew you personally, and that's something that needs to be shared. Now, does anybody have any questions?